Mindy, it is so great to be chatting with you today. Thank you so much for coming on See Her Love for our Summer of Strength series.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited.
I know, and I know that people are listening, but your background is amazing with your paintbrushes in the back, your painting in the back is beautiful. I love it.
Thank
Definitely
you.
very artistic. We know where this conversation is going to go. But let me start off with this first. So you're part of our Summer of Strength series. What moment, Mindy, verse, or person has strengthened you or inspired you as you continue on this journey, as you write your narrative? What would you say?
What person
A
or
person, a verse, or moment? I'm giving you
okay.
lots of
Wow.
options.
Ooh. I would say, I mean, obviously my obvious answer would be my relationship with God.
Hmm.
That has strengthened me. That's been the whole journey of what
Hmm.
I've been doing with artwork and my journey with, I believe, the voice he's given me through the arts. The other, I would say, significantly is for my own prayer life, but also God connecting me with friends that pray with me and for me. So I've been kind of in a season of a lot of strengthening through prayer. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and just going into that, like you see the background, this is an expression of where I've been at recently is in this garden. I would say I'm really drawn to a garden experience of being in a garden with God, I'll call it. And that metaphor of gardening and of blooming and blossoming through, a process of planting and watering and
Mm.
sowing. That has been really my journey, and it's the fallback visual that the Lord always brings me to when I paint. So it just comes out is a gardening process. So
That's amazing.
that's
I
yeah.
love that. That's a good picture moment. I love that. The strength in you. And in that, the next question, which you've kind of answered, Mindy, was what part of your story do you hope will strengthen our listeners, whether they're struggling today in loneliness, despair, they're stuck, they're frustrated? What's your hope of your story that you hope will strengthen our listener?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to that. I think in just a metaphor process of gardening, there's so many stages to full bloom, right? So um, whether you're at seed stage or you're buried in the ground and you don't see what's coming or what's next, you have people around your life watering you, sowing into you. Um, some people are in a weeding and pruning process where we're weeding out the junk or weeding out things so that the flowers can come. Or if we're in like budding stage or blooming stage, wherever anyone's at, I just find with my own story and journey that the Lord brings us through processes that no matter what stage we in is beautiful, and that there's hope, that there's always something coming, and that's the hope in Christ, right? Like we are on a journey with him our entire life. So I think we're always in these cycles, and no matter what stage you're in, there's beauty in it. So
Yeah, that's
to
amazing.
be
I love
hopeful.
that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, in your bio and in what I've heard about you, you are a talented Christian prophetic artist working in acrylic on canvas. And for some people, they're like, what does a prophetic artist mean?
Yeah,
What does that mean? It's
I
like
know.
artist, and I think I get
Yeah.
prophetic, putting that together.
Yeah.
What does that look like? What does that mean?
Well, and I was the same. Like, I actually early in my journey in the arts and coming back, like a part of my story is coming back into the arts because I let it go for about 14 years. I didn't do any artwork, and when I had a dream in the night of me um, being on a stage with an easel and a painting. And it was the most simple dream I've ever had. But in the dream, I felt a sense of accomplishment, of purpose, and it was all around this easel and a painting. And I don't even know what the painting was about. I just remembered the color in the dream was purple. Like the painting had purple paint in it. That's all I remember. And I literally just woke up out of that dream and I felt a sense of purpose. And I went to art school. I was always artistic as a child, but I had a gap of time where I didn't do any art. So when I woke out of that, it was one of those dreams that I kept coming back to. It was burning in my spirit. Like this won't leave me. I feel like I need to go back to do artwork. And I feel like that's how the Lord can speak to us often in different ways. But he really spoke to me through that dream and that painting. And I just felt this longing to get back into what I used to do. And so part of that for me, with the prophetic end, I didn't understand what that word meant. I had a series of events after that dream that the Lord connected me with people who would pray for me. I wasn't really walking Holy Spirit at that point, so I was just burning. It was the beginning of my process. And there was a pastor that prayed for me, and he spoke a word and said, "You're a prophetic artist. You're going to go paint on stages and use your gift for the Lord." And I'm like, I had that dream. He had no idea. I was connecting dots. The Lord was speaking to me through people. But that word prophetic art, I had to go and research myself because I had no idea what that meant. So, yeah. And I would say if I were to wrap that up, the Lord kind of told me, don't get hung up on a word, like what that word means, and you fit into this category of this word. It's really, I think being prophetic is just leaning into the voice of God in your life and walking out with him what you're doing. And I think any spirit-filled believer or a believer longing and hungering to hear God and be obedient in their life to what he wants you to do for him, you are being prophetic in that act of just walking it out. And so when I think of prophetic art, I think it's just creating with the Lord, like with the intent of creating with him and for him and through him. Mm-hmm. Whatever he shows you is prophetic. Yeah. So
that's good. And now you said, Mindi, 14 years you didn't do art. Is that right? 14?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a long time. And I know there's a number of people who, you know, they have a dream, a desire, a gift. And I think even today there probably are listeners who are like, and I know that that's a passion of mine or something, but I'm too busy. I got to pay the bills. Right. I can't do it. Other blocks, Mindi, that are causing them not to do that.
Right.
What's your encouragement? Because I think there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, we get that 14-year break or doing something else and not what maybe God has called us, or something deep in us in our soul that's like, oh, I want to do that. Life happens, right? You know?
Yeah. Well, that's a huge chunk of my story. Is my encouragement is, if you know there's been like a talent, a gift, a longing desire in you, no matter what it is, the Lord is very patient to bring you back into something that he's always put in you. And I always think too, looking back at my story, because of that process, there's a process in it that we always start. It's like we start at seed stage with everything. And whatever he gives you, even if it's a dream or a desire, just start with that. Even if you can carve out a little time to do whatever it is, if the Lord desires and wills you to do it, he's going to give you the avenues and open doors as you start doing it. So I think there's a bit of a act of obedience to step out, whether it's like, for my case, it was after that dream, I didn't even understand what obedience was that unlocks more. But I went to a store and bought purple paint. That's the act of obedience I did.
Wow.
It was simple. I had no idea what the painting was. Like I said, I just knew the color. So he gave me just a nugget. So I went and got purple paint. And I remember in the store, I went to Home Depot and I got like wall paint. So it wasn't even art paint, but I paint with every paint.
Yeah.
So, and I remember even that day, as the guy was mixing it and everything, you know, there was this like, I was in a store. I remember wearing moccasins. Like I was in like sweatpants. Like it wasn't like a big thing. Right.
Yeah.
And I remember I spilt some of the paint on my shoes, on my moccasins. I still have those moccasins.
Oh, wow.
Because it was like a moment where it was like messy and beautiful all at the same time. It was the beginning of that walk. And I think it's interesting. It fell on my shoes. So, just this messy process of doing it. And then I came home that day and I'm like, blank canvas in front of me. And I'm like, what do I paint? And I had a vision in my mind of purple flowers. So again, he showed me the garden immediately. And it was the flower, I didn't even know what it was called at the time, but you know the purple flowers that hang?
Yeah.
They're like wisterly or what? I can't even remember the name of them. Anyway, I've seen them in beautiful pictures. Wisterly?
Is it Wisterly or Wister? I know. Now I'm like,
I
gotta find those.
I know. It's so bad. I should know that word. But I painted those flowers kind of draping down, and I called the painting the dream. And I just remember that simple act of painting it out. It must have in the spirit realm unlocked something, because after that, my whole journey just started unfolding with it. And it didn't happen overnight. It's been years of journeying with it. But my encouragement to anyone is just start with something, like whatever it is, just start and enjoy it. We get caught up in our natural anxiety or worry or emotion of things. But I think when God has you doing something, he wants you to rest in it and do it with him. That's something I've learned is I had to be broken of mindset process of wanting things so fast, or it's not happening in my timing, or you know what I mean? I think God's brought me through a process over the years of just doing it out of worshiping and being with him. And I think God's more interested in your personal relationship with what he's gifted you with to do with him than what the outcome is.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And so I know with my own art, I had to go through a process of him stripping my ideas of even a finished art piece. If it wasn't perfect, it doesn't matter. It was more about doing it with him than it is about the outcome of things. Or I just remember I journeyed a little bit. I spent a 30-day time frame quite at the beginning of my journey where I felt like the Lord said, paint a little teeny painting every day. It was just a little mini painting. And it was just a simple, in the morning I would sit and pray and say, what are you showing me today? He would show me a simple object and I'd paint it. And as I was painting this object, one was, I don't have it up here, but one was like little yellow rubber boots. And it was like just this simple, tiny little painting I would do. And as I'm painting it, I would listen and hear what he was saying to me through it. And with, say, the yellow boots, I think of being childlike faith, jumping and splashing in water. And then I would hear scriptures kind of come up in me of like, being joyful in the rainstorms, or just little things. I think, what does yellow mean to me? What does just simple stuff. But it taught me how to hear him. And then I'd go into the Bible and I'd find scriptures around these little objects. And so I remember I started with that little project. And from that, it built like a symbolic language in my art process with him. But I think he can do that with any gift in anyone, whether you long to write or produce, like sing or music or baking or, I mean, it doesn't even matter what it is. He can do it with you and through you, and then you can bless others with it. So,
That's good.
yeah,
Mindy, you said something that's really interesting because it seems kind of counter to what people usually want. They want a perfect outcome,
right.
right? And they
Yeah,
want to rush to get to the top to be successful without the process. And it's not a slam
yeah,
against the next generation of millennials. I'm not saying that because there's part of that in me, but there is
yeah,
something about the process, about the waiting, the being with him, and not so
hmm,
concerned about, when I say this, the outcome, but being in the
yeah,
present. That's really powerful in what you said. Because what I've
yeah,
noticed around in like kind of culture is that it's
hmm,
about, we got to get this right away. We got to be rich by 21. We got to be the president by 25. We've got, you know what I mean? We got to have all these
yeah,
things. And there's
yep,
this hustle and pace that is exhausting and troublesome and unhealthy, right? And as you're
yeah,
talking, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, there's definitely this, as I'm just listening to your own cadence, it's kind of like this peace and calm and rhythm within you that's really,
right,
really inspiring and encouraging.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, even to get there, I'm right now personally in another rhythm, I'll call
Mm-hmm.
it, of my own journey where I feel this sense of I've been rhythm to pull back. Um, but there's been seasons where I'm traveling going forward. And I think it's like God, I love his rhythms, how he'll prepare us for a season to launch us out to do something, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. In my case, I was traveling and painting live with a ministry all throughout the US and went to different countries. And I was in a go season for years. And then there was this pullback season of, I want you to stay back and stay home. And actually, that hit right when COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
And God knew. I mean, he knows what's going on. So it was another pullback, go in the secret place, and when you're feeling like successful in an area, say, or I was out there, I was painting live, I was in front of audiences, and you seem like you're building up this momentum of success,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden you're home and you're not out anymore and you're pulled back. I think he wrestles through our natural desire to build to the next level what we think,
Mm-hmm.
but yet he wanted me to go deeper in him for a season, which meant not going out, not being in front of crowds, not being whatever. So it's like, I feel like the Lord brings us through rhythms of what we think is success and what he thinks is success. And that this last 3-year period, I've hunkered down in my studio and I haven't gone out. But he's built in me a layer that I probably need for another launch at some point, which I don't know what's
Mm-hmm.
ahead. Um, but and building in, he brought me through a season of deeper prayer, and he told me in that time, he's like, you need to learn how to pray. And I'm
You're like,
like,
what?
what? I
What do,
thought I
yeah,
did
what do you mean learn
know.
how to
Like, what
pray?
do you mean? I don't know how to pray. I pray, but I feel like he was saying, no, 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 you need to go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's lots of seasons in our walk that we may, like, I had to wrestle through letting go my idea of what was coming that didn't work out,
Mm-hmm.
and being shut down, or opportunities being shut down. And in my mind, I think I was like, what? Like, I'm going backwards, but I think God's like, no, 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 no. Like, he just prunes
Yeah.
us in the process. So whatever process you're in. And like I said, I feel like I've been in a rhythm back to soak deeper in him rather than be in the public and be, you know, doing art shows or whatever. Like, I have longings and desires to do stuff, but I've learned in enough process now that if I'm not in that season, to rest where I'm at and enjoy where I'm
That's
at.
really,
Um, Yeah.
I love that.
So
Rest where I'm at.
whatever season you're
Yeah.
in, enjoy and ask the Lord, what season am I in with you or in my life? Like if it looks like a setback, I guarantee it's a setup for something coming or something new,
Yeah.
right? And to soak in. And I think seasons where we get disappointed that things aren't
Hmm.
happening or a closed door that you thought was coming, um, I've learned to just rest in the Lord now. And it's almost like sometimes He has another idea that we don't
Hmm.
know.
Well, and you
So,
know what you're
you
saying,
know,
Mindy? It's so good. And I know, I've had a lot of conversations around the COVID and pandemic and people's responses. I will say
right.
this. The one thing I've heard is that even though people might not have enjoyed the lockdown and the change of opportunities, a lot of
Right.
people I know said it actually forced them to step back, assess,
Yeah.
like, how's my
Yeah.
life? What's going
Yes.
on? And in the
Yeah.
places where, especially followers of Jesus, is my prayer life
Right.
okay? Am I actually being quiet? Am I reading the
Hmm.
scriptures? Am I. All these things came up
Hmm.
because we actually were forced to be with ourselves, to think deeply, because
Yeah.
we've been, even within Christian ministry, Mindy, it's like we're doing the work of
Yeah.
God, but we're not being with Him. You know what I mean? We're doing all
Right.
the things for
Oh,
Him,
yeah.
but we're actually not
Hmm.
with Him. And then we're like, God, sorry,
Yeah.
we can't be with you. We've got to do the work for you. And He's like,
That's
hold up.
right.
I'm
Hmm.
literally asking you to just be with me, and you're off trying to do it for me. And, and so that has really come up. And what you're saying is really
Hmm.
encouraging, because some people are like, oh, what a horrible 2 years, all the things. And it was very challenging. But on some
Yes.
front,
Yeah.
though, if you look at what that did, where it forced you to be in and think and be with yourself, I think for a lot of people
Hmm.
coming out of a pandemic who actually took that opportunity to learn, to
Right.
pray, to do that, I think it
Yep.
was some good moments for people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's a real setup for a reset and resting in something. And what I'm seeing, because I am in the
Yeah.
creative field, but I think in times of like seasons of war or tragedy or whatever, um, I think God then can quiet people enough to hear what He wants to do
Hmm.
new. And so for me, I mean, He keeps showing me new visions to paint to express something. So I think um, in these seasons, it's really awesome to quiet and shut down the busy so that we can say, what are you wanting to do new that you can do through all of us? Like,
Hmm.
what voice and expression of God are we to be in this new season as we come out? And man, I just think I get excited thinking of new forms of creativity or new ways that the Lord needs to express Himself to the earth and to the next generation,
Hmm.
um, that's all of us. Like He'll do it through us, His vessels.
Yeah.
So, um, there's always, you have to grieve the past a bit, but once you get through the grieving, it's like, I'm just like, what new things
Hmm.
can you do
Good.
through us now? And I think that's the process. Like we get replanted, reseeded. But one thing that I've learned is I went through about a year or two of grieving the old of what I thought would be that never happened. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you work so hard for something, let's say, but God's like, He really is recalibrating me and my mindset of what you think might be different than me, but I'm preparing you for something you don't even know,
Hmm.
right? So I've kind of let go of some of my own expectations in life and the future, and really trying to put trust in what God's about to do and what He might have a surprise thing in your life that you don't see coming, but He's been preparing you this whole
Yeah.
time. And if you let go and let go of things that you thought, He might be able to then do the new thing
But
through
it's,
you.
yeah, but isn't that
So
the way I mean, it's so funny because, I've been a
yeah,
follower of Jesus for a long time and many are, but we let so much of us, of our control issues and what we think is
yeah,
best, and we actually, when you sit back and think about that, we actually don't allow God to do exactly what you're saying, right? Like, he's like,
right.
I'm always
Hmm.
here, I'm with you, I have these ideas, but you think you know better, you have, you know,
Right.
and then we come to the end of ourselves and we're like, oh, God, you're so right. I did it the
Yeah.
hard way. Now, I mean, obviously, we're going to go through those, but it is, I love
Yeah.
what you're saying a lot about being with him in the process. I love this idea that you're saying
Right.
setbacks can be, perfect set up for new things that God is doing. Mindy, for the
Hmm.
artists, I have a lot of friends who are
Hmm.
artists, and I hear it's tough work being an artist and trying to make a life and make money out of it. I mean, what, and I'm not an artist. I have a lot of friends who are, some who are like that's their full-time job, some are kind of, it's a side job and they've got to work real estate or do other
Yeah.
things.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about
Hmm.
that. I'm fascinated about that because I know it's hard, but people still do it because they're like, this is what my passion is, this is what I love. It might not pay the bills, but I
Yeah.
I do it. I maybe give me
Yeah.
some thoughts on that. How to understand them, encouragement for that artist who might be struggling.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in my own situation, yeah, I went through, like, I did go to art school. I went to art school in the US, and I did leave. I have a fine art degree, just a studio art degree. And you kind of walk away going, what in the world do you do with this? Like, and I left school definitely with some lies that I believed. And it was, oh, you're not good enough to be a full-time artist. I really processed, how in the world do you make a living at that? And I walked away from it. So I left school and I immediately looked for a job. And not that I walked away from it. I think God takes people through processes. So yeah, I had to have a full-time
Mm-hmm.
job to support myself, to get my feet off the ground. Luckily, I land in a creative job, so I did interior design
Mm-hmm.
work. And so I was around creative atmospheres. It was with textiles, and I did show homework and whatever, and it was fun. It was amazing, and I actually kind of miss it. But uh, I think encouragement is, if you have to have a job, that's, use the job to carve out time and the money to create. And my process, I got married, I had kids, I was raising three boys, and I went through a season of, I couldn't even I couldn't keep up work. So I wanted to stay with my kids, but because of that time frame, the Lord then brought in that dream. And then I had the time to juggle kids and art for a while. So I think whatever season of life
Mm-hmm.
you're in, ask the Lord, what, if you're artistic and want to create, carve out those little times, and that is sacrifice. And I think God, he burns on sacrifice. So if it is an hour in the morning or an hour at night or whatever you can carve in,
Mm-hmm.
do it. And then as your season shifts, you'll have more
Mm-hmm.
time. And as my kids got older, I got more time to do the art. And then, but my husband and I did have a conversation about, when my kids got full-time in school, do I go back to a full-time job?
Mm-hmm.
And we both decided at that point, this was a gift from God. I really encountered Jesus in my art box, and I knew, I'm like, I am doing this for him. So he'll
Mm-hmm.
provide whatever that looks like. And we did make sacrifices in our life for me to stay at home full time and pursue this. But as we did that, God started opening up doors
Mm-hmm.
for me. And so my encouragement is, where you're at, ask the Lord, what space and carving out of time are you being given? And then, I think I think he loves to work with our obedience and our sacrifice and willingness and hunger, and he will carve it out. And I did. Then I started a website. I worked at all of this slowly over the last
Mm-hmm.
7 years. And I've been in it about, well, 2014 is kind of, I don't even know how many years ago that was. Is that 8 now?
14. Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
like
know.
math. I know what Mindy, we're like, we
Yeah,
know the
I know.
flowers,
I
we
need a,
don't know our
I need a
years.
calculator.
We're like,
No. So I mean, it's
That,
been,
yeah.
nothing happened
Right.
overnight. I've been working at it slowly, and I will say this last season, this last year, I've done well enough to have a great second income. It's not like your corporate job income by any means, but it's enough to keep me
Yes.
going and keep me going in this. And I mean, then you just reevaluate what's important to you. For me, it's painting and doing this, whether I make a lot of money at it or not.
Hmm.
That's where I'm at. But God's always provided for us. We've never been without, and what we need, we get. And he's been growing it. And I would say I have a lot of different streams that the Lord's allowed me to create. Website, I've gone into printing. Um, I started a monthly collectors club. I do commissions and originals in my own series. So I have a lot of streams I'm juggling with the art to make it a
Yeah.
full-time job. But I think one step at a time, God will give you new
Hmm.
ideas to create it. If you want it full time, he'll make a way
That's good.
for it.
That's
But
encouraging.
yeah,
I want to talk about
yeah,
the garden and gardening. So I'm not a gardener. I wish I was, but I have
okay.
killed.
I'm not either.
Okay. I've killed so many plants.
I
I got
paint
this.
them.
I've got two great plants that my husband and I paid for. He even bought a really beautiful like pot, and I killed them. I either watered them too much, or they didn't get enough sun. Like honestly, I
Yep.
just um. But gardening, like your prints, flowers, like it's so inspiring that it makes me want to garden, even though I know I'm like, ugh. And I know there's something about it, like the earth, and seeing something like you were saying, earlier, the seed coming into bloom. It's beautiful. Um,
Yeah, it is a
yeah,
beautiful
I
metaphor.
want. What would you say? I mean, because your art. I mean, so many beautiful flowers as well. And you said you're not a gardener, but I was wanting to talk about like I love the imagery of that because it really
Hmm.
shows of what God can do as as we plant, as we grow, bloom, the weeds, the the seasons, all of that. There's something really beautiful about it. And I'm looking at your painting behind you and I'm like,
Yeah,
it's gorgeous of the
yeah,
flowers.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, phew. I love. I'm such a flower person. My fallback has always been flowers if I'm painting art. I get lost in painting texture and color, and there's something organic
Mm-hmm.
about them. But like, I know it's so cliche, but God created us in a garden. And so like the Garden of Eden, I mean, we're meant to be in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And um I kill plants too. Like my family actually laughs at me because they get me. I don't have real plants in my house, and I love when people I see it, but all of mine are like silks because they die. I don't
And
know.
I have fake plants,
I'm not
Mindy,
a
all over
gardener
the
either.
place. Fake,
But
because I'm just like,
yeah, but
can't keep the real ones in.
I know. I'm like that's terrible. But spiritually and with my art, I love it. Like I can do it there, but I can't do it. So it kind of shows you too that God makes everyone different,
It's good.
and if my garden has to be on a canvas that doesn't die, then that's where I put it. But
And I have fake plants in my
serious,
house, so maybe, yeah, maybe that's
yeah,
it.
I do too. No, but I also think just spiritually, I think how beautiful. Like this painting was inspired by in the book of Revelation. It talks about um, the 24 elders. I have this whole idea of this series, so this I had to get this out, but it might take me a year to do it all. The golden bowls of our
Hmm.
prayers that are filling up in the throne room, the golden bowls. And I'm like, wow. And I felt this like the Lord showing me that the prayer hands, worship hands, I'll have all different hands, but the fragrance of our prayers lifting, it says the incense, and I just imagine our prayers are like this gorgeous bloom of flowers and fragrance being lifted up into the throne. Our interaction with the throne room is always
Hmm.
going on until Jesus returns. And I just thought we're in an active state with heaven right now. But the way I saw it was this fragrance coming up from the garden of our prayers. Hey, so if you're not a gardener, you can pray, and you're cultivating a garden of prayer.
That's a good thing.
And praise.
So there is hope for those who.
Yeah. I think our life exudes, like, our life is that living sacrifice and living fragrance. And it says in scripture that we're the aroma of Christ everywhere we go. And so I think if we're just so connected in our life to the Lord, we are a garden. Like, we exude a garden around us. And
that's amazing. I love that. That makes me feel better, because I thought, oh, if she's painting all this beautiful flowers, it must mean she's really great at gardening. But I want to, those are the kinds of things where, as we were talking about during the pandemic, like, I was never like a cook. I didn't really like cooking, but the pandemic allowed.
I don't either.
And the pandemic allowed for this time, and realizing that cooking can be creative and fun. I started like cooking, and now I actually don't mind it. Like, I hated it. And now it's like I can do it. And then gardening, we started, my husband and I started doing this tiny little garden, and it felt good to like put my hands in the dirt, and I never really did that either. And then I picked up ukulele. I need to get back to that. But there's all these other really cool things that, because I had, which is funny, we always had the time. I just didn't prioritize it. This was where we were at home, and it seemed like there was more time. But it was just like, no, we had the exact same amount of hours in the day, but I was filling it with people and doing this and doing that. And if I actually looked at it, it was like frivolous time wasters, some of the things. And then when you are, at home, it was like, oh, maybe I should learn how to cook. Maybe I have time to like learn the ukulele and sing with my family. And, so that was really interesting. So those were kind of neat moments that I love when you said setbacks can be a setup for something new. That's exactly right.
And try new things. Like, I love that. You're able, and that's another thing that's good. Don't be afraid to try something new. Like, that's a really good thing. And actually, I've mentioned my oldest son we were just talking about this like a week ago, is we were laughing. He's like, Mom, you don't like plant flowers and stuff. And we were laughing about it because I paint them, but it's like I felt in me the challenge of I need to actually try it and learn it. And it would be a good challenge. So that's a good encouragement too. Try new things.
I really like
that.
Mindi Oaten, this was great. This was a really fun conversation. Where can people get your beautiful pieces of work?
I have a website. It's just my name. So it's www.mindioaten.com. So it's just my name put together, Mindi with an I. And I have everything up there. That's how people can get a hold of me. So, and my email, I think there's a contact in there, so you can always email me too.
Mindi, you're so inspiring. I love what you're doing. And I just love the way as you speak about your journey and what God has been doing and continues to do. It's really inspiring. You know what it is? I'll say this. You have this ease about you. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like you're trying, if I can be honest, like you're trying. It's like, this is who I am, and this is the rhythm and the space of where God has placed me to do in obedience the work that He's called me to do. And you're doing it through art. Like, it's really beautiful to see. I love that about you. Even just in this conversation.
Thank you.
There just seems to be a calm and a peace an ease in which you're seeing, you're living, you're being obedient to God in that. So I just want to encourage you in that. It's really beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So we're cheering you on, Mindi.
It's something that
great chatting with you. And make sure you go to mindioaten.com for your great pieces for cards and all kinds of things, and connect with Mindi as well. So Mindi,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Thank you for
Awesome.
being part of our Summer of
Yeah.
Strength series. And I know that we will definitely be in touch or connect soon again in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.